Hey, this is Ashton Adams, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yes, yes, indeed. We're waiting on Matt to get in. It looks like they've got some technical difficulties. We'll continue to work that live as we fly this plane through the air. But we've got Ashton on here, and look, I love having musicians on for a variety of reasons. And as you all know who watch, we've had I don't know hundreds of musicians. We're still working on trying to get Tara Kemp on the show. She's got a whole lot of life going on, and it's just amazing. We're working on getting Randy Markham and Tom Mason on the show. But we've also had, I don't know, John Robinson, who's played on every single track, it seems like, of all time. When you look at your community, Ashton, and you see when people say, you can't make any money in music, they're kind of right. But there are also 10,000 different jobs, if not more, in this community. And you can also invent your own job. Hey, and here's Matt. We'll get Matt in here right now.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I just asked you a question about the 10,000 jobs in the music industry. So I'm going to let him answer that. And then we're going to bring you right back in, too.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think, it is very hard. The starving artist thing is a real thing, especially at the beginning. But I believe it comes down to education, right? There are so many different ways of making money in the industry, whether if you're an artist, whether you work in corporate, like at a label or whatnot. There's so many different avenues. So I think you have to really decide of like which lane and direction you want to go in, and then really educate yourself about how to monetize from that, whether that's like a salary, whether that's, if you're an artist building a fan base that actually wants to support you, whether that's with your merch or coming to shows or just streaming, right? Especially with TikTok and social media in this day and age, it is so easy to build a community. And not easy, it's difficult, but it's never been easier than before, building that community and being able to really make a living in this industry. So it's a good opportunity now in 2022.
Hey, tell us about your buddy Matt and what he's got going on since you helped him.
Oh my goodness, so much about Matt, but I gotta let Matt answer that himself.
What was the question again? Sorry.
Tell us about Matt.
Okay, so Matt is an artist and a producer, and he is from Cambridge, Ontario. He's based out of there. And I've been doing music for a little while now. I've been producing since 2020, but writing for as long as I can remember. And as of right now, we're working on TikTok as one of the lanes that Ashton said about the 10,000 jobs. You can work on TikTok. So that's what I've been doing recently, as well as working on Instagram and other social media parts.
When you got, were you going to say something, Ashton?
Yeah, I want to say when I met Matt, he was he's incredibly talented. There's not many people who can listen to a song and just know the exact key it's in right away. And he blew me away. And he's a very humble guy, very humble artist, but extremely, extremely talented. One of the most actually talented individuals I've ever worked with.
Matt, where does that background come from? I mean, are you a perfect pitch guy? How do you know what key the song is? That requires some kind of musical theory and likely piano playing type background.
It does. So I think it's something about playing an instrument or learning theory before you're the age of 6. But there are some instances, I'm pretty sure, where you're born with it. So for me, I've been playing piano since I was 5 years old. And that's when I also started learning how to do theory. And then I started picking up on everything around me. So the sound of doors closing, the sounds of a tap, the sounds of like a car alarm going off. You can just pick up on that. And basically through practice and memory, you can develop it.
Yeah. But starting that young in something, and really music is one of those young people professions. Like if you're going to be a professional ice skater, you had better have started early, you can't
for sure.
Let me get loose and I'm going to start doing some twirls and some axles and everything else. The ability to recognize that, but also to have the desire to stick with it. Were there any distractors for you as you came up? I mean, I'm not saying you don't go play hockey or whatever, but at some point, a bit of that professionalism has sprouted into a little tiny sapling, and you're like, no, but this is where I have to be until you don't love it. So that must also be true for you, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Want to expand on that?
Pardon?
Yeah, expand on that, please.
Okay. So, over time through your creative journey, the whole part of being an artist and just is exploring yourself and how you want to express an idea, how you want to produce a song in a specific way, how you want to express something, especially like an emotion or a feeling. You go about many changes during that journey. And for me, it was a pretty long journey. So I started properly writing music when I was in grade 10-ish. So the progress that I've went on from that point in time is really major. I've gone through a lot of evolution and a lot of change for my sound and my style. And it's all about just continuing to work at it and continuing to try new things and being comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put a link to Matt's Spotify account, and he's got his latest song, but all of his songs are on this. So definitely, and it's a bit of a cumbersome link. So look in the comments and you click on it there, but I'm just going to post it here so you can see what that is if you want to try to type that nonsense into your browser. Ashton, I want the same kind of question for you. How did you come up into the music world? When did you get started? Because look, it's one thing. Okay. And this is not about you guys in general. Anybody can say they're a producer now, and it can mean anything. It's like saying, "Oh, I'm an actor" or "I'm a comedian." Yeah, but that doesn't tell me like where are you at. You can be internationally famous and financially successful on TikTok and be invisible. Almost like if you walked around NAM being a hit TikTok sensation, maybe nobody even knows who you are. You know,
yeah.
Right? It's so crazy how expansive and diverse and disparate the music industry is.
No, for sure. My journey, I started off as a lot of musicians do, is just playing instruments. I started in my church worship band, and I played the bass, I played the keys, and then eventually moved into playing drums, and that really evolved into playing I played in a metal band for a few years as well, which I absolutely loved. And in high school, I picked up a computer and started just producing just house music, started going in and doing that. And I really didn't start making, I would say, like hip hop type records until I was like maybe my 19, 20 years old. Got into that and, did some work with different labels through my early 20s, worked with a lot of different artists, and then really decided to put out my own music. And I had a song that my first single I put out did pretty well. I got over like 5 million streams on that, and it was really cool seeing all the label attention we got from it. And just from there, just started working and continued putting out music, and meeting amazing artists such as Matt on this journey, and creating music like Lost has been just so much fun. And developing as an artist, developing as a producer, developing as just a businessman, right? Because I feel if you're in this industry, you have to know how to run a business. You are a business yourself, right? It's no difference than starting a coffee shop, right? You need to know who your target market is. You need to know when you're going to put out content. You know how much you're going to sell your content for. What's your ROI, et cetera, right? So I think that has been one of the coolest things, learning over the last few years of just how to really do this properly. And then obviously talking to amazing people like yourself who help us get our music and our brand out there, right? So I appreciate that. Appreciate your contribution to the industry as well. So
it's a lot of things, right? So the marketing aspect, absolutely, the CEO aspect, right? We talk about this quite a bit because you might be a professional whatever player, fill in the blank player, and you'll gig every day of the year that you want to. But okay, that's great. You've got the comfort of always doing what you love and putting some money in your pocket, but are you tending to your business? Are you dealing with the fact that you might break your wrist in Schenectady at a special show, or when you stomp on your trombone? This has actually happened. Felton Pilot from Confunction was going up the stairs to go onto stage and stomped on his trombone. It's like these things cost money and time, and you have to account for them. I love that. A friend of ours is Sage Logan. She's a young singer, and she's incredible, right? And so we're talking to her about marketing and getting on lists and all of these things. And I guess I'll ask Matt this question. Matt, when you hear about all this stuff, like you have to market, you have to get on lists, you got to go on Pete's Stupid Podcast, you got to do all these things. None of these things are performing. None of these things are in the studio. But if you don't do them, the industry will choke the life out of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. And especially with these opportunities that we have, such as going on podcasts and on social media, you have to show your personality and just what makes you you and what makes people gravitate towards you as a person. So if you really learn to harness that, people will start to see you for you as well as the music as well. And it just builds from there.
So this is a hard question, and I want to ask you this question, Ashton. The I'm thinking that like the trap era has kind of seen its peak and it's starting to go down. It's still there, but I got to tell you, as someone that listens to a lot of music, and also as a 52-year-old man, so emphasis on the old man, a lot of modern music sounds the same. It sounds very, very similar because anybody can be a producer, anybody can make beats, anybody can touch things on our 808, right?
Yep.
So how do you find a space, a genre, or create a new subgenre? I mean, look, house music and trance and trip hop and on all these things are all connected.
Yeah.
But how do you make something? There's nothing more disappointing when someone at NAM is like, hey, listen to my music, and they're not inside NAM, they're outside. I'm like, I appreciate the hustle. Here's the $10 for the CD. I don't even own a CD player, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you stand out when everybody is making the same style of music? And I don't want to say there's no innovation going on, but there's a lot of sameness.
Well, that's a great question. I feel the number one thing about being able to stand out in this day and age with TikTok and with music, especially everything being super oversaturated and thousands of records being released every day, is the one thing you can control, and the one thing that will make you significantly different than everyone else is being authentic to yourself, to your fans, being.
Okay. How do you do that?
By really finding out, just being yourself, really expressing who you are, your personality, what you stand for, and in your music being unique, taking inspirations from certain people, but then making it your own, not falling in line with what's the sound that came out yesterday, right? And it can be tough with TikTok because you see so many trends and so many things going viral, and you're like, hey, I'm going to make a song like this. Or I see that more in hip hop. I do agree with you. I think hip hop is very not even just hip hop, dance music too, right? It can get very repetitive and everything sounds the same. And I think that on your musical journey, you have to make a conscious effort to do things different, experiment outside the box, and really try your best to show who you are, yourself, your personality, and then put that into the music and show that as well. And I think the one thing that I feel like myself and Matt have done, and specifically Matt too, is come together and make a song that he comes from an R&B singer background, I come from a house music background, and then we bring our creative talents together, and you come up with something that's different, right? Just some falsettos in there and whatnot, right? So I feel like we really hit the head on that when it comes to Lost. But essentially, really be yourself, and try not to fall in the lane of just making the same cookie cutter stuff every single time you make music, right? But It is tough though, because you're so just bombarded with the same stuff every day and the same 6-second TikTok clip and whatnot. So it can be tough.
So Matt, Ashton says, I want you to be authentic. And I say this all the time, how do you be authentic? You have to just be authentic, right? You can't try to be that, but maybe you can. I don't know. How do you, when he tells you as a producer, hey man, I need you to be intentional and authentic, how do you define those things and how do you execute on that definition?
Well, thinking about it, everyone has like their core influences and specific artists or sounds that they like to gravitate towards, especially. And then building on that, especially for production, you can add your own flares. It's just a lot of experimentation at the end of the day. You can take your sound, take a sound, and then just try and do whatever you possibly can with it. Make it really cool. Make the hi-hat an open hat type thing. A lot of little differences, a lot of tweaking things. And eventually you can find your own sound and it will be easier.
No, I love it. I love the exploration of that too. which makes me think about we had Tommy McElroy on the show, and Tommy is Tommy is one of the most successful producers in music, right? He and his partner invented En Vogue. How about that? That's pretty good. He also, through an accident of plugging in gear and getting something wrong, he invented that hook from I got five on it, which comes from Rumors from Timex Social Club.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right. And so I mean, how much money has that hook made for him in his life? Yeah, because it's used in all kinds of stuff. I'm just saying I got five on it. That's that's not even the first issue of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys are familiar with Timex Social Club and Tommy's early work, but this is a fantastically successful guy. But he got there because they plugged in electronic gear, but they plugged in actual gear, and then something magical happened. And I'll add to that, Egyptian Lover, if you guys know who he is, he plugged in an 808, and there was a loop that he found. Even Roland didn't know about it, and it became part of his signature sound because no one knew how he did it, right? Yeah. And so these things of getting into the studio, these accidents can happen. Is that something that you're like, how do you Bono always says, like, you're waiting for God to enter the room, right? So Ash, what does that look like? I mean, how do you create these accidents and realize that an accident might be a $5 million bill the moment it happens?
Being diligent, right? Okay. Diligent in the studio, always working on music, always trying to take things to the next level, experimenting, right? Because if you try it, it'll be like, hey, I'm just gonna make a song that sounds like song A. Then you'll never find that because you're just gonna try and recreate the sounds and things like that song A did, right? So you can be like, hey, I want to take some influences from song A, but then I'm gonna take this bass or synth and try and experiment with like the LFOs and the different waveforms and really try and take my time and make something unique. And all of a sudden you might press the wrong button and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, this is a crazy sound. And you keep experimenting. So experimentation and being diligent in the studio and really always trying to work toward making something unique will get you that eventually, and a little bit of luck.
Yeah. But that luck comes from being in the studio, right?
Exactly.
In there, that's where the luck is built. When I walk through NAMM and I see a lot of the modern instruments, there's a lot of just like a keypad what you can program sounds into, right? And I don't know, do you feel like the accidents can be limited the more the machine does the work for you?
Yeah, especially in this day and age with all the modern VSTs and plugins and stuff, it doesn't really. You can still experiment, but it's just not the same as like hardware gear, right? You'll ask any engineer if they rather the digital or the actual gear that they can actually play with and whatnot, and have the wiring. They'll take the hard gear any day, right? And it's you can't, in music at the end of the day, it's human. You can't, no matter how synthetic or it may get, there always has to be a human element. You can never, a robot can't, it can get very close, but you'll never have that true human swing, that true human influence from anything digital, right? More than the hardware and whatnot.
And you're a drummer, you know how this goes. And Rick Beato talks about this quite a bit, that getting away from that quantized drumming pattern, right? And deciding, like, I love Hot Fun in the Summertime, by Sly and the Family Stone, right? Yeah. Because the time is just messy. It's like hot, sweaty people in a hot, sweaty room singing. Yeah. And they're like, you're gonna have to give me a minute to get there. That song is not at all like ding, ding, ding. It's and there's a sexiness to that song.
Yeah.
Are we losing that, or is that still present?
I think in the dance world, I feel we are losing that a little bit, but it also depends on the genre that you're in, right? But I'm always drawn to more organic elements, more songs that have organic elements like guitar, piano, even just a natural swing of drums, even if it's not like an acoustic kit, but the producers actually take the time to put that swing into it as much as they can, right? I feel our ear as human beings will always naturally be drawn to that. Just like if you're walking down the street and you hear a live band, they could be horrible, but you hear it and you're like, oh, what's going on over there? Right? You'll always be attracted to that human element and that just humans playing songs, right? So I do think we're losing that a little bit, especially in, like, I would say somewhat in the hip hop world, but we have people like, different artists and Matt, for example, that bring that human element to the production, to their songs, singing as well, and having that unique voice that, when you hear it, you're like, oh wow, like this is sick. Like, who is this? What is it? Like, I want to know more, right? So
yeah. Hey, there's Matt right there. Let's find out more from Matt right now. When you hear us talking about this stuff, like, what are your thoughts? What are your contributions to this part of the music industry?
Well, I completely agree with Ashton as well in terms of the loss of like the luster, the sexiness of the entire thing. Because at the end of the day, I think that people are really attracted to not only the means of getting to somewhere, but also the ends. So they see music as being like a quick, like a get rich quick scheme type thing. Oh, you make this a bunch of times and maybe you can get rich. And then as a result of that, everyone's just trying to copy like the same formula because they know it's worked in the past and
Right.
history repeats itself. So people get complacent and they don't want to try to experiment with anything or try to make anything cool or new. But yeah, it just comes down to honestly experience with trying to create your own type of thing to really stand out. Like for example, in singing, I like to have a specific lick. So like a little run type thing where I know it's really unique to me, and also the rhythm behind it and the creativity behind it and how do you apply it into a song or in a verse. And yeah, from there you just build your style.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah.
How do you know if your style's working? Again, back to the business side of things, right? Like you're like, I got a style, and the industry's like, because look, Jimi Hendrix had to go to England to have a style, right? He had to go there and sweat and stuff. So how do you know if you have a style or not?
Ooh, it's tough, but it comes down also to a lot of feedback and also your own preference towards it. So if you get feedback saying, oh, this is really sick, I need more of this type of song, or oh, I need more of this type of artist's voice or inflection type thing, then people gravitate towards that. Like even just think about Young Thug with all his vocal range and all his little quirks and little ticks that he does. And people gravitate towards that. And then as a result of that, also people copy it. And that's just how it goes.
Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
That's true. That's so true. It's funny that Matt brought Young Thug. I worked with Young Thug and his team in my early 20s for a couple of years, and I remember one guy was talking about they actually wanted him to change his voice a little bit. They thought it was weird. And I remember one mentor of mine that I work with. He told him, he's like, no, don't change it. Don't. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you you, right? And obviously from then he's, obviously in some trouble now, but his music career has been amazing, and it's being unique and having that specific thing that just you're authentic to yourself. He was being who he is. That's how his voice is. He's not changing his voice to be like this person. He's just being himself, and that is really what makes you stand out from everybody else. And because everybody is individual, I'm different than both of you guys, right? And I'm not different than everybody else, right? So I think that's awesome.
Oh, so my buddy Tom is actually I mentioned him earlier, coming on the show soon. We're trying to get the scheduling worked out, but catching that swing is tough in music making software. What are your thoughts on that, Ashton? That nails it right there. It's a drummer talking, right?
Yep.
And a drummer who might drum on a cajon because that's what the song requires,
Yeah.
And which makes you're like, what? What do you mean there's no? But he's right though. There's something about that swing.
It is tough. It is very tough. But for me, I'm going to get a little details of the production. So when I use Logic Pro X. So when I'm producing, you have everything on the grids. You have the grids where you can line up things, and I'll use samples. So I'll take like a hi-hat sample, right? And let's say you have like your hits, like right, you have it lined up. What I'll do is I'll create like another track, and then I'll take those hits and I'll put them each one on a separate track. And then I'll lower the volume of one just a little bit, and I'll nudge it over just a little bit so it's not right on the grid. And then you get that kind of that swing, right? It's never going to be just like as a human playing, but being a drummer, you already have that natural swing in your head of what it will sound like when you're like playing it. So I just try to take that from what's in my head and then put that onto my project. And I've honestly, I can say I've made some songs with like even acoustic samples that have really, you can't tell the difference. Even with some Slate plugins and drums and all technology can take away from the human element of it, but at the same time, technology can help make it even better because I can guarantee you some of my drums programming that I've done by myself made band records will sound better than a whole band put together. So it's kind of here and there, right? But you have to know what you're doing. You have to already have that natural vibe, and you have to know what it feels like to have that swing. But I think you can make that happen if you know what to do and you have the right tools at your disposal.
Definitely check out Ashton Adams' work on Spotify. A lot of you guys have Spotify, and while you're doing that, swing over to Matt's account too. There's him. All those things are in the comments. Just look in the comments. Just give these guys a spin and check it out, and you will get an idea of what we're talking about here. Being your own CEO. I'm bringing Matt over here. Being your own CEO of an organization, right? Did you? How do you learn that? Have you learned that? And then when a guy like Ashton comes, right, and Ashton's trying to look out for, he's like, this is going to cost $2,000. Registering it here, this is $500. Oh, this is $200. I really think you need this guy over here. And then all of a sudden, you've spent all this money, and no one's even heard or know, right? And that's got to be terrifying to invest that much time into something. And then you have to go pay the guys. Like, I get songs on playlists. You have to pay me. There's a lot of people you can pay to make your song. Talk a little bit about being the CEO and learning business and knowing what you know about the business.
True. So at the end of the day, everything in your life and how you can control is influenced by what knowledge you have. So for me personally, I like to observe how businessmen work and how even influencers work and how they get popular and how they catch virality. And then eventually you learn all of these little techniques and little tricks that you can incorporate yourself into being a CEO. And at the end of the day, you being a CEO of your own company, it also applies to the value of your company. So what you know influences what your worth is. So if you know how to produce, if you know how to write, if you know how to sing, if you know how to market, if you know how to do business and you know how to collaborate, you'll be a dangerous man.
Ashton, how do you learn the business side?
Matt touched on pretty much everything there, but I would say it starts off with education. It starts off with breaking your nose, and I'm not talking about this nose. I'm talking about the KNOWSs, right? Breaking all your nose because you don't know everything, right? So it's really, educating yourself and looking to people that have done it, right? Really, it's not really, you're not recreating the wheel here, right? It's seeing what they've done, doing that, but then obviously making it your own. But just the basic stuff of knowing the foundation of business, right? I think that's, it's the 80-20 rule, right? Where it's 80% marketing and 20% of the music, right? So you got to know, really, you can have the best pen in the world, and if Walmart or anybody doesn't want to distribute it, then nobody's going to know about it, right? So how do you get it to Walmart? How do you start building the buzz that gets people to start looking at you and who are you, right? And I think that's the key of really being your own CEO and knowing how to navigate all these different avenues of the music industry.
Do you guys care about radio play at all, like actual over the air FM and or AM radio play?
I think radio play is still important when it comes to a certain where you're at in your career. Especially in Canada, I think it is still important in Canada. You can get a lot of bookings off of it. It's still another avenue to get to ears, right? And I think every avenue is important. Wherever your music is going, you want to be able to have that listenership. But I do think it's important. But before that, I think again, it can be expensive. You can be dropping a lot of money, doing radio, trying to get it out there. So I think before doing that, work on yourself, work on getting your buzz up, work on, digital, Spotify, different social media platforms before running to radio. Because at the end of the day, all radio stations care about is that they stay to listen to the next washing machine commercial. So,
but you might sell music to Maytag though, right? You might sell, something, like every ad I hear on YouTube is a young person's music, like I'll go to listen to music on YouTube, specifically like an album or something, and I'm like, quit playing the ad because it's ruining my vibe,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Hey, Maytag, you're listening. We're here.
Yeah, we're here. Hey, Matt, one of the things that I know from talking to a lot of musicians is that, and I don't think this has changed at all in the music industry, there's people out there that'll take all of your money. I mean, you know, everybody, to include Ice Cube, right, has had this happen to him.
Yep.
Someone will come in and say, to get in this door, you have to give everything up, and you're so desperate to get in that door, and whether you know this or not, you do it. Or you might have your contract bought out by someone who doesn't like you, and they sit on your contract and they don't do anything with it. They're like, yeah, we got you, but we're killing your career. How do you know what to do? Are you afraid of these things? It's a serious thing. It can impact how you live the next 30 years.
Yeah, that's really tough. It's always tough, especially when hindsight, usually you can view it through and be like, oh, maybe I could have done something differently here, so to speak. But so long as you are enjoying yourself, so long as you have a set amount of control over what you're doing and what contract you're in, even, you'll be able to have at least a good time and at least a better time.
All right. And same question for you, Ashton. How do you look out for your artist? How do you look out for yourself? How do you know when you got a good deal or a bad deal?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of idiots in this industry, and I can be the first one to say it. And there's a lot of people that don't have your best interests out of hand, and it goes back to knowing the business side of it. When you go, if you have a label interest or a contract put in front of you, at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line, right? It's about what's in it for them, right? And they want to benefit more than they're not coming to the table to be like, hey, you know what, we're a charity here, we want to make sure you're the best, and we're not going to take $0 from you. No, that's not what it is, right? So I think it's like, having education and knowing how to navigate, but then also having a good team, right? Having a good lawyer that's behind you, that will have your best interests at hand, and really just knowing what's best for you, or what works for you, because sometimes you might have a offer from a label, but it just might not be the thing that's for you. And then when it comes to money and things like that, it's just again, starting out the foundation of what is your plan, what is your goal, where do you want to get to, and does this money I have that I'm going to put out, does it going to fish me, and we're going with my plan. I think you have to really weigh the outcomes of what could happen if you do go in this direction, that direction. But at the same time, it does, as a business, it does take investment to make things happen, right? It just like I said before, you start a coffee shop or starting being an artist, you need to invest in your location, you need to invest in your marketing assets, you need to invest in, tools and things like that, right? So there is a part where you do need to invest in, and the music industry can get expensive when there's certain things you're doing. But like I said, I think it just comes back to the foundation and your game plan that you have for yourself, and then everything else kind of aligns within that game plan. And then you'll have more of a clear vision going forward when you have certain situations arise, whether it comes from contracts or financials, whatever it may be.
Someone walks in your door and they want to get a song produced, and you listen to it. You're like, yeah, we can do something with this. What is that going to cost from that? Yeah, let's work together to the time. And look, we're doing ballparks. There's 100 million factors in these things, but what does that cost for a young artist who's like, yeah, I think I got something. This guy likes it, and you're like, he's going to cost $12,000 or whatever it's going to be. What does it cost to put a song out?
To put a song out, or to create a record, like to make a song with someone, or to actually put it out?
Yeah, to make a song with someone, one song. Maybe they've got a series of them. They're going to drop them one at a time and everything. Yeah. But yeah. To work with someone like you, and get a song all the way through the process on iTunes, on Spotify, all of those things. What does that cost?
Well, it depends on the artist, right? If Beyonce came to me and says, Ashton, I really want to make a song with you, I'm going to be like, honestly, Beyonce, you might not be able to afford my price. No, I would never say that. I would, it depends. If the artist, is doing very well for themselves, like, again, another thing knowing about the business is publishing, right? Publishing can be very lucrative. Part of the business, every million streams is like around $4,000, right? So, if you see the artist, gets, average of 10, 15 million streams or even more on a record, you can do the math there. And let's say you get, let's say 50% of that publishing, right? You're going to make around $2,000 every song, right? So, losing out on that opportunity because, let's say an artist, might not have the budget for it or not, I would say, maybe charge it do it for free, right? But at the end of the day, I think when it comes down to money, everybody has to survive. You have to make money, and when it comes to that, and obviously when you're working with labels, and you have your team, you have your management, right, things like that, and everybody has to eat, so you have to make sure that you have your business side taken care of. But it really comes down to the music, right? When it comes down to like if you're moving forward with just money being the sole focus of it, I think you're gonna not love it as much anymore. You're gonna lose a bit of that, right? So if you focus on just the music and making the best music you can with people and with artists, and putting that out, the money will come. It will come, whether it's from features, whether it's from publishing, whatnot. So
Right.
I think it comes down to that. Yeah.
The someone we found out about early on and got him on his way up, but he was already kind of up there, was Bryce Vine. I don't know if you guys know Bryce
Oh yeah,
Vine.
of course.
Here's a guy who, look, most people haven't heard of Bryce Vine, but if you go look on Spotify, there's hundreds of millions of spins of his stuff, right? Like hundreds and hundreds. Probably, if he's not at a billion yet, he's got to be over it. He's got to be over it. Yeah. And there's someone who's largely unknown. It's crazy when you look at, like, here's someone has a financial machine. Maybe he spends almost all of it on his business because you have to invest back in the business. But that, to get from where anybody just starting is to where hardly anyone knows Bryce Vine, where he's at, man, that is a journey, right? And his music's great. He's Berkeley educated. A lot of his friends who work with him are Berkeley educated. This is the thing. When you look up and you're like, man, look at Bryce Vine way up there. I mean, that's how you have to feel like as a musician. But is that attainable still, or has Bryce Vine gotten to a point where it's like, like, is there a direct path to do that if you're good, or is he kind of up there where, like, he had this break and that got him to the next level? What do you think?
100%. I think there's no place you can't get to, right? I think in this game, like, I think wherever you want to go, you can get to. It may take a little bit longer, it may happen quick, but like if you want to get there, you can get there. You got to work smart. Sometimes you work smart. People work harder but not smart, right? Kind of flip it. But I think when it comes down to that, you can get there. You can get that fan base that will stream it millions and millions of times. Obviously, there's gets to the levels where you get to a label and they're sinking a couple $1 million into you and putting on every editorial playlist, and you're driving marketing, and you're going to get those numbers, right? That's just the reality of it. But beyond that, it goes back to building a community, building a fan base that will, number one, stream your music all day, all night. But then also when you come to the city, they're going to go and buy a hard copy ticket and come and support you, right? So I think that to me is more important than numbers and anything like that, because you can get all these numbers, but if nobody wants to come out and support you in real life, then what's the point of it, right? Unless it's just straight for making publishing money. So
that is so important to say that. Yeah, I have this shirt. I don't want a shirt. I don't buy the shirt because I want the shirt. Hell, I might give the shirt to somebody else, but I'm buying the shirt because I want you to make a little bit of money. Yeah. Matt, I know we've been talking a lot. I wanted to bring you back in, but when you think about these things and trying to, like, get up to where a Bryce Vine is, or even Beyonce, something like that, is that important to you, or would you be happy being like, hey, I'm a guy that puts out music, I make money, I produce for people, and I am a professional musician? Like, where do you need to be, do you think?
I have big aspirations. So for me, I want to be like the greatest artist of all time.
Yeah.
That is my end goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So constant work, constant viewing of the culture, constant learning of the business strategies, constant evolution. Yeah. And definitely you can make it nowadays with good music alone, pretty much, but it's not going to be anywhere near as fast as it would be if you put your own promotion out there, sunk some of your time into the business aspect and the marketing aspect. But yeah, it just depends on how you want to go about your journey.
Yeah. And then do you have a budget? You're like, every song gets whatever X number of dollars per song on marketing. And, you have to meet people, right? You got to meet someone who will put you on their list, and curating lists. Oh my gosh, who knew that was going to be a multi-billion-dollar field that you can make money in,
Yeah. In terms of collaborations, I'm pretty much just brand new starting out, but we're making some connections and whatnot in order to get some artists to actually be on the records. But in terms of, once again, how I was going back to, you have to make sure you know how to do everything.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can also make as much money, but you can spend the least amount of money as well, because you can produce, you can write, you can sing and record, you can do many different styles of vocals. You are your own brand. You can pretty much do anything that anyone else can if you put your mind to it.
That's totally true. But let me challenge you a little bit,
Okay.
and it's happened a lot of times, right? Like Boston, that album is incredible, all done pretty much by that guy. Trent Reznor's first, like, he's the guy that did all these things. But sometimes you got to have someone in the room that says, hey, man, too much, hey, you can do better, right? Because when you're tired and you don't want to do better, and the guy pushes the button and the thing goes like, hey, you got to do that again. You need that thing, right? And so how do you, I mean, and you're a young dude. I'm not saying you don't have talent, but how do you have the discipline to allow someone else? There's a great story that Exhibit tells about Dr. Dre, right? And it's like, you go into the studio with Dr. Dre, you bring your money in, and Dr. Dre is going to work with you, and there'll be these young guys, and you're like, I know how to rap, I got songs and everything else. And then Dr. Dre starts doing this, do it again, do it again, do it again, and he keeps doing that because he's looking for something, and he'll know it when he hears it, and he's Dr. Dre, so when he hears it, it's right. And then if the rapper goes, oh man, I think I got that one good, Dr. J will say, I'll be right back.
Yeah,
not be right back. He's Dr. Dre, so he can do what he wants to do, but he knows, like, you're coming to him because he knows. And so how do you balance that need to be pulled and pushed, and the ability, very importantly, to be able to do it yourself and get the thing out? Because there's that perfection versus production thing you've got to deal with too.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely people who have a lot of experience you listen to. Also, not even that, just get other people's perspectives. And it's always good not just to be stuck in your own way.
Yeah.
Of going about things, because especially if you start to collaborate with people, they might have a different time and they might have a different way of doing things, and then you may clash. At the end of the day, be adaptive. Being adaptive to the situation you're in. Say you want to put out your record yourself. Say you want to produce a beat yourself. By all means, you can go do that. But when you are engaged with other people, you also learn to see from different perspectives other than your own. And then from there, you can hone that into working with not only what you think is the best, but also they think is the best as well. And then the collaborative opinion will make something greater.
Ashton, I want to bring you in to talk about production versus perfection, and producing your own self versus having someone who's, I'll say, better than you, right? Because they're not you. That's the only reason why they're better. You guys are equal skill, but talk a little bit about that, because that's like, life is a balancing act, right? So you got to figure these things out.
Yeah, there always will be people better than you. There's producers who are better than me, and there's producers who are better than the producers that are better than me, right? It's always one of those things, right? But I think when it comes down to collaboration, I think it's great to have other people involved in your music, because you can get, let's say you've been listening to this certain genre of music for a month straight, and you start creating that, right? You can have an influence for someone else. Say, hey, why don't you try this? And that's like, oh, that could work. That idea may work, right? So I think collaboration is really, really key. And then feedback, as Matt said, is being able to adapt to constructive criticism as well, right? But in terms of producers producing for me, like I like to do my own stuff really when it comes down to that, and I get opinions here and there, but when it comes to my own music, I do like to have somewhat a little bit of control over it, just because I feel like, again, it goes back to being unique to yourself, and it's easy to get somebody to come in and just kind of completely just give you a record that, hey, this is going to hit radio, it's going to be great, everybody's going to love it, cool, but that's not you, that's not who it is, right? So I think you have to have some sort of a little bit of say, because again, you are the CEO of your company, so you should know what everybody else does, but the best leader has the best counsel, right? So I think that has to be able to moving forward in the music industry, you have to kind of remember that when it comes to collaboration and other people in your music.
I can't think of who I'm trying to think of right now, but how many times have we heard an artist say, I hated this song, and it just goes through the roof, right? It's in spite of everything that they are, and they're like, "Damn it, it makes me so much money, so it's my best friend." But I just do it,
Yeah.
And it's crazy because that's how the industry works, right? Like someone will say, "I hear a hit," and you have to go, "Okay."
Yeah. Some of the best songs that you like, I've done, I'm like, I didn't think this was gonna do well, right? But you just never know, right? Because at the end of the day, you just gotta put your music out there because people will love it and people will hate it, right? You just don't know. So you just have to give it a chance. And your music, you'll never feel completed. You'll never feel like this is it. I've done everything I can. Even when it comes out a year later, you'll be like, oh, I should have added this, or I could have did this, or whatnot, right? So it's never truly completed. It'll never truly be completed. But again, taking years to finalize things, it's gonna it'll mess you up, right? So you have to be able to get to a point where, like, right, I'm done with it, put it out, move on to the next.
That's right. Even if you hear it later on and you want to add something, hey, do a remix or whatever it is.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of crazy jobs in the music industry that no one would have ever thought of, Dave Auday is a friend of the show, and he just takes, like, Lady Gaga will come and say, "Hey, make a dance track for this." U2 will come and say, "Hey, make a dance track for this." Taylor, like over and over, and all of these incredible artists come, and that's what he does, and he just cranks them out. And he must have, I mean, when we had him on, and it's been several years now since he's been on the show, he must have had 130 number one hits on the dance track. Like he's the guy you go to, and it's just like bananas that he's this machine, and that's not free for him to do that. Like that's how he makes his living.
Yeah.
That's also mostly what he gets to do. Like he might get to mess around with other stuff, but he is trapped in this wonderful golden cage, right?
Yeah. Well, for sure, you have all those guys, like even different producers, songwriters. There's the key ones that labels and publishing companies know where to go to, right? Which I think is cool, but again, it falls down into the same. It's the same formula. It's a radio formula. It's a pop formula, right? So again, I personally don't think you'll get unique stuff out of that. Let me take that back. You will find unique stuff out of that because these are great producers, these are great engineers, great musicians, right? So they will, obviously, their work speaks for them, but when it comes to moving the culture forward and doing something unique and different, like, I don't think it'll come from that. It'll come from the person in the bedroom experimenting on different things that gets out there, and that's where you get longevity. That's where you get timeless records, I personally think.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on all this stuff, Matt? I'm going to bring you over here.
Yeah, literally everything that Ashton said, I completely agree with. Yeah. And even just thinking about some of the biggest acts and some of the most iconic songs, literally nowadays, there's some SoundCloud songs that are just recorded in the basement, and they're without a doubt some of the biggest, most iconic songs in especially hip hop of the 2010s type thing. Yeah. Guys like Sextentacion, got Lil Peep, Juice WRLD, all these guys, they all sat there and they all just kind of created this little thing themselves.
They did, right? It is possible to do. Sometimes you go to sleep and you wake up and you're like, I need horns. Work for Johnny Cash, right? You got mariachi horns for Ring of Fire, and blew the lid off the place. One of the things I love is horns, right? And I know you can push keys with horns, but I'd rather you hire a horn player, right? Because horns are different. Like a pipe organ, it's different. Have you guys ever heard a big pipe organ when it's just jamming you in the chest, and it's not even got it turned all the way up? There's something to that, right? Like that multi-directional sound that just is like when you're filling an entire room built for sound, and the sound is moving in a way that's supposed to do. Man, to me, that is the ultimate. Like, I love live music. I love symphony. Like, I like all kinds of music, but I love going to the symphony and watching people play the most incredible pieces of music that are still relevant hundreds of years later. What are your thoughts on live music, Matt? And then we'll get over to you, Ashton.
Oof, live music is incredible. It sounds amazing. It is always going to be the purest form in music, in my opinion, because what you lose in production is sometimes when you pick a sample or an instrument that you want to find off of VST, it lacks stereo, which basically means of how full it will make the room or make whatever it sound like what's being played off of. And live music, because at the end of the day, music is a bunch of sound waves that bounce off.
Yeah.
And especially when it's able to fill up a room, that's just the best feeling. It just envelops you in the atmosphere, envelops you in the vibe that it wants to put you in, the feeling that it's trying to elicit. Everything. Live music's incredible.
Yeah, no, I agree with Matt. When it comes down to a VST or a live instrument, it'll never compare. It will never truly compare, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes we can't bring in a session player sometimes when we need it, so you got to make do with what you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, it comes back to the whole human thing, right? When it comes down to digital or synthetic or human, like your mind will always be attracted to the human element of it, right?
Yeah.
But live music is great. I love live music. I think live music, if that's one thing I don't think you can't ever get rid of that. You can't ever get rid of being able to pick up a guitar and play it, being able to take a mic and sing, being able to put a band together and play music and not people gather, right? You can't take that away. And it's been proven even through COVID, right? Music does not die. Music, you cannot get rid of that. It will help people get through tough times. It will help people get through global viruses, right? So I think you can't get rid of that no matter what. Even if just with your family in quarantine, just singing a tune, just playing music off your thing, right? Like music will survive anything, and it'll always be there.
Yeah. So how do you push yourself then, Ashton? How do you push yourself to say, man, we got it. We got to wait. We got to get this done right. I got to get whatever it is, a French horn player in here because I want to do this. And, so a friend of ours is Wes Mabey. He's an engineer and a producer, but he let that guy put mics on that instrument and he's going to kick digital's ass, like he's just, he's made for it. Right. And I'm not saying you get to do it all the time. And it certainly is a more expensive way to approach it.
Yeah.
If it's the right way, goddamn.
100%. We've been blessed. We have a great engineer at our studio that myself and Matt both work with. And he knows how to mic things up, and it's great that you have somebody that can do that. Now the hard part is finding that session musician to come in. But I feel like if you have a song that you're like, the last thing I need is a sax, or the last thing I need is this. Reach out. There's so many, and I think that's reaching back and supporting your community and collaborating is because there's so many talented musicians out there that may not be doing this as a professional thing, but are great sax players. So reach out to them, find out, put it out there, and be like, hey, I'm looking for a sax player to collaborate with. Have them come in, and you're probably blown away with what they can do. Just because they're not playing a legendary venue with some band doesn't mean that they're not just as talented. Because it's just like I say with the NFL or NBA, there's only a certain amount of spots in the NFL or NBA, but there's triple amount of people that can play that spot, right? So you have the same thing with music. You have to be able to be open and network and be able to find value and talent within your community or within a certain place to bring them in to complete that record.
A guy I grew up with, he started a pops symphony in Macon, Georgia, and we were talking about how it's kind of funny when you have like these, and anybody who doesn't know, pops is fantastic. It's like popular music with symphony mixed in, and it's just fantastic. But for the player who's sitting there, like this is a world-class player, right? Like they're in New York or San Francisco or San Diego, like all these places, and they got that sax or they got that, trumpet or whatever it is, and they're just playing whole notes, like just. And they're like just bored to tears, but that's what the song calls for, right?
Yeah.
On the other end of that, you take that player, and Carol Kay is the example I think of. She was from the Wrecking Crew, and she wrote all of the hot bass lines in the 60s and 70s when all these LA session musicians were doing it, and they would like, here's the bass line, and she's like, it was that, it's this now. And then she would change it in a way that everybody agreed it made it better, right? And so we have to give these guys, you're like, this is going to be a sax part. And he's like, you know what this is? This is the bass sax part. Let me grab my big boy and then start honking on this thing. And you're like, oh my God, we never even, because that's what their job is, right? Is to lift it up. But as you say, are there session musicians where you live? Are you better off just creating this thing in your garage or in your bedroom? You're like, hey, you know what? We'll do another one later on when there's, like you have to have the resources around you, and you no longer have to be in New York or LA or Nashville to make music. Indeed.
No, that's true. Especially this day and age, you can be anywhere.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh no, I said makes sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about Love real quick, Matt. I want to make sure we at least talk about that. If I play it on the show, then it gets problems with licensing or things. So I don't want to play it, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. It was a relatively quick process. So Ashton and I have a mutual contact, and basically what happened is I was introduced to him. I played a couple of my beats. He was blown away, I guess. Yes, he was. And yeah, basically he sent me a dance track, which was completely out of my element. I'm not used to it at all, because I either sit in like a hip hop or an R&B lane. And yeah, just really quickly, I jotted something over voice notes, sent it back to him, and he enjoyed it. So really quickly, we got back into the studio and laid all the vocals down, and then it got mixed and released.
I love it.
Yeah, it was great, man. It was
Ashton,
great.
what's your version of that story? It's not like that at all, was it?
Sorry, what? No, it was. Matt's a very humble guy, right? And I'm gonna give him his flowers, but when I did first hear his music, I was blown away. I was like, wow, like this is crazy, and like I knew I had to work with him. And one of the main things that I like to do musically is bring other genres into dance music, because I think you can create some really unique stuff. And so I came out with this production. I sent it to him, and he pretty much like freestyled the whole thing. And it came out to Lost how it was, and it just the way the melodies he came up with, the way he sang it, the lyrics, it was just great. I was super happy, and I was like, wow, this is a hit. When you know, right? There wasn't much do it again. So much of that. But so he was really just incredible. How he was able to capture that. And working with him on other records too, just on more of his own stuff, the R&B lane, the music that he has coming is incredible. And I do feel his best work is ahead of him as well. And it's going to be, I'm excited just to be on the journey with him and see where he's going to go. So
put your producer hat on for 1 second and give Matt some advice. What do you want him to see or touch or do more or less of?
I want Matt to continue being Matt. I want him to continue pushing the boundaries, continue experimenting, never stop producing your own records. Always keep pushing the envelope, keep going forward and making the best music you can, but then being grounded in yourself and being authentic to yourself, because success is, if success will come, and it's when it will come, right? So I think, making sure that, you have your morals and you have your foundation strong, and continue to make the best music you can is a key to success and key to longevity.
Thank you.
Is that good advice?
Pardon? Oh, yeah, that was a great advice. Great advice.
You guys want to ask me any questions? I told Ashton he could ask questions if he wanted to. But do you guys want to ask me anything?
I think you have the coolest story ever. I think it's the sweetest thing. I love military. I love all that stuff. Thank you for number one. Thank you for your service. 100%.
Yes.
Thank you for your service. And what was that you can tell us? What was the craziest experience that you've had about your career?
The one story I always tell, because it is pretty crazy, is we were in Bosnia on a small team, right? And there's not many of us. There's really 5 of us, and we're always fully engaged. So there's not a lot of security. Yeah. And of the 5 of us, we had 2 rifles and 3 pistols. And so we didn't know how dangerous it was going to be, and if it was a gunfight, we are not prepared for that, right? Yeah. We don't even have body armor. Yeah. So we're gonna have to go to this basically a bar and meet a bunch of folks that we thought were ne'er-do-wells, because everybody in Bosnia was murdering each other for a while. So there's a lot of ne'er-do-wells, and so we didn't know what to do to keep ourselves safe. We didn't know how crowded it was going to be. We didn't know what we were going to do to try to get out of there. And so what I ultimately came up with was, during the meeting, I would have my hand on a hand grenade, and for a while with the pin out, and it turned out that the bar wasn't as dangerous as we thought it was. And so during the meeting, I put the pin back in the hand grenade but it was going to be a dead man switch. And I had activated a dead man switch so I could walk out of there.
Wow.
And that's pretty damn crazy. And I think about that and I'm like, why did I? But in the time, you're limited on your options, right? You got to go do this thing. You have to go where the bad people are to find out bad things.
Yeah.
And so that was what I had come up with. And thankfully, I didn't have to do anything with it. I have to show anybody. I was able to keep it. But
yeah,
can you imagine?
I could just holding that grenade alone with the pinout.
Yeah. And everybody knows when you hold a grenade, but there's a thing called the spoon. It's the trigger. If you hold that thing, you're safe. You're safe. And nothing will happen, right?
Yeah.
But if they don't let you walk out, you're like, well, you can't shoot me either because I will let go of this thing, and then people can have a bad day.
Yeah.
You can hold on to it without the pin in as long as you're careful and you don't gotta like hold it. You just simply hold it, right?
Yeah.
But it's a hand grenade.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's power leverage, eh?
It's pretty crazy and pretty legit.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Matt, and I'm gonna put this thing on 3 people here. Matt, I love what you guys are doing, both of you. I love that you guys have this song. I said love earlier, lost. That's what happens when you run your own bottom graphics. I love what you guys are doing. Feel free to come on the show anytime. I wanted to have Sage come on and cross notes and stuff, but maybe next time we'll do that. And just, I appreciate the heck out of you guys for coming. Anything, each of you, in closing that you want to get into at all, or should we just wrap this thing up?
Matt, does anything?
Yeah, I think I'm all good on my part.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete, thank you for having us. I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation, and once again, thank you for everything. And just make sure to keep streaming Lost, and make sure to follow myself on Instagram. So all social media is Ashton Music, and Matt's social media is
Matt Wilk Official on all social medias.
Yeah.
WILK Wilk.
Yes.
All right, let me roll this thing. Stand by.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much